Ever get the feeling that, like everything runs in cycles? You start noticing these patterns, like in totally random places.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where we are with Bitcoin right now.
Right.
You wanted to understand its market cycles,
Yeah.
and we found this fascinating material from this guy, Jigs.
Okay.
He calls himself a cycle guy,
Interesting.
and he connects the dots between ultramarathon running
Oh, wow.
and investing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you heard that right.
I was hooked the minute I saw this.
Really?
The mental toughness needed for both is
Yeah.
incredibly similar.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what kind of strategies overlap, right?
It's not just about mindset, though.
Right?
Jiggs's big idea is that understanding cycles is the key why to successful investing, period.
Yeah.
Not just in crypto.
And he's onto something there. Cycles give us that predictive power, right? They help us plan, stay calm when the market's going crazy.
Yeah,
Which, let's be honest, is like Bitcoin's default setting.
totally.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine training for a marathon. You wouldn't sprint the entire way, would you?
Oh,
You'd pace yourself, strategize. That's what Jiggs is getting at.
okay.
He actually has this whole system called the 10-10-10 strategy inspired by marathons.
Okay, so this 10-10-10 thing, it's
Yeah.
more nuanced than just running a marathon.
Okay.
He breaks the race into 3 sections each. About 38% of the total distance focused on head training heart.
Yeah.
Then that last 24% is pure grit.
So the first part is all about strategy,
Right.
like mapping out your course.
Yeah.
The second part's about honing your technique, making sure you're efficient.
Yep.
And the final stretch, that's where you push your limits and tap into that mental resilience.
Exactly. Now, the catch is
Yeah.
this forces what runners call a negative split,
Okay.
finishing faster than you start. That's brutal, even for pros.
I can see how that would be tough.
Yeah.
But how does this marathon strategy apply to Bitcoin specifically?
Well, think of it this way. You're not jumping into Bitcoin at the peak of a bull market just because everyone else is. The head phase is when you're researching, understanding the technology, the market trends. The training phase is maybe when you start dabbling, buying small amounts, testing the waters.
So you're not going all in right away.
Right.
You're being strategic, disciplined. You're essentially training yourself to be a better investor.
Right. And then when you see those signals, when the market is showing signs of recovery,
Yeah.
that's your heart phase. You've got the knowledge, the experience, and now you commit more capital ready to ride that upward cycle.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Jiggs isn't just looking at Bitcoin in isolation, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He's talking about cycles in all sorts of areas.
He talks about natural cycles, economic cycles, technological, social, cultural, even Bitcoin's own unique cycle.
Yeah.
He's got this whole framework for how these cycles interact and influence each other.
So he's basically saying that everything's connected, right? Like
Yeah.
these cycles are all intertwined in some way.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is that he sees these major cycles converging right now. The public social cultural cycle, which lasts about 25 to 30 years,
Okay.
is aligning with the technological cycle, which runs on a 50-year time frame.
And when those two collide, that creates an even bigger cycle,
Yeah.
right? Didn't he say something about an 84-year financial cycle?
Yeah.
And then a massive 252-year revolutionary cycle on top of that?
Yeah.
My head's spinning a little.
Yeah, it can get a bit complex, but the takeaway here is that Jiggs believes these massive shifts are happening right now. And guess what? Bitcoin is right at the center of it all.
Okay, so let's zoom in on Bitcoin-specific cycle. He calls it the halving cycle, right? Can you explain what that means for someone who's new to this whole thing?
Sure. So imagine every 4 years or so,
Okay.
the reward for mining Bitcoin gets cut in half. This
Yeah.
is built into the code. It's not arbitrary. It's called the halving.
Okay, so the reward for miners gets smaller over time.
What?
Why is that such a big deal?
It's about scarcity. As the reward decreases, so does the rate at which new Bitcoins are created. And historically, this has led to some pretty significant price jumps. We saw it back in 2012, again in 2016, and most recently in 2020.
So Jiggs is basically saying that if you can understand this halving cycle, you can predict when Bitcoin's price is likely to go up.
Well, it's not quite that simple,
Right.
but recognizing the halving as a key event in Bitcoin's cycle can definitely help you make more informed decisions.
And what's interesting is that Jiggs started out like a lot of people in crypto, just chasing those quick gains.
Yeah.
But he ended up diving deep into the knowledge, learning how to ride these cycles and potentially maximize his returns.
It's a classic example of someone starting with a short-term focus but evolving into a more strategic investor who understands the long game.
It sounds like a lot of this comes down to controlling your emotions, right? He talks about using math and set rules to overcome those impulsive decisions.
Absolutely. We all struggle with FOMO and panic selling, but having a strategy based on something as solid as math can help you stay disciplined.
So if I'm hearing this right, Jigs is basically saying that understanding cycles is like having a secret weapon in the world of investing.
I wouldn't say it's a secret weapon,
Okay.
but it's definitely an incredibly powerful tool. It's about recognizing patterns, understanding historical trends, and using that knowledge to make smarter decisions.
It's like having a roadmap, a guide to navigating those inevitable ups and downs.
Exactly. It's like having a compass, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't tell you exactly where to go, but it gives you a sense of direction.
Right.
And that's especially valuable in a market as volatile as crypto.
So let's talk more about these different types of cycles Jigs mentions. We touched on the technological and sociocultural cycles,
Uh-huh.
but he also brings up things like natural cycles and economic cycles.
Right.
How do those fit into the picture?
Well, it's all about understanding the interconnectedness of systems. Jiggs argues that these cycles influence each other, creating a complex web of cause and effect.
Huh?
Take the natural world, for example. We have seasons, tides, even sunspot cycles. These patterns have been going on for millennia, and they have a profound impact on life on Earth.
Right, like how farmers have to plan their crops around the seasons,
Exactly.
or how coastal communities have to be aware of tidal patterns.
Exactly. And those natural cycles also influence our economic systems. Think about how the availability of sunlight or rainfall can affect agricultural yields, which in turn impacts food prices and global trade.
So it's like these cycles are all nested within each other, creating this ripple effect across different domains.
Precisely. And that's what makes Jiggs's framework so compelling. He's not just saying, hey, Bitcoin has a cycle.
Right.
He's saying, look, everything operates in cycles, and understanding those cycles can give you a significant advantage in navigating the world, including the world of investing.
Okay, so how does this all tie back to Bitcoin? We've got these massive cycles happening in nature, in society, in the economy. Where does Bitcoin fit into this grand scheme of things?
Well, Jiggs believes that we're at a pivotal moment in history where these cycles are converging in a way that's creating a fundamental shift toward decentralization. He calls it the me cycle, a period where individuals are empowered to take control of their own finances, their data, their lives.
And he sees Bitcoin as a key technology enabling this shift, right? Because it operates independently of governments and central banks.
Exactly. Bitcoin represents a break from traditional centralized systems. It's a decentralized digital currency that allows for peer-to-peer transactions without the need for intermediaries.
So it's not just about the financial gains,
Right.
although those are obviously a big part of it. It's about this bigger idea of individual empowerment and control.
Right, and that's what makes Jiggs' perspective so fascinating. He's connecting these grand historical cycles to a very personal level. He's saying, look, these cycles are not just abstract concepts. They have real-world implications for your life, your finances, your future.
I'm curious, does he give any specific examples of how understanding these cycles can benefit someone in their everyday life beyond investing?
He talks about using cyclical thinking to make decisions about career choices, relationships, even health and wellness.
Oh, wow.
He believes that by recognizing the cyclical nature of things, we can make choices that are more aligned with the natural flow of life.
So it's about being in tune with those rhythms, those patterns that exist all around us.
Exactly. It's about understanding that there are seasons for everything, times for growth, times for rest, times for change. And by recognizing those seasons, we can make choices that are more likely to lead to fulfillment and success.
Okay, that's really interesting. But let's bring it back to Bitcoin for a moment. We talked about the halving cycle, which seems to be a pretty significant driver of price action. But are there other cycles that Bitcoin traders and investors should be aware of?
Well, beyond the halving cycle, there are a number of other cycles that can influence Bitcoin's price. There's the 4-year market cycle, which is often linked to the halving event, but also includes other factors like market sentiment, technological advancements, and regulatory developments.
So it's not just about the supply shocks and the halving.
Right.
It's about the overall market psychology and how that interacts with a halving event.
Precisely. And then there are shorter-term cycles like the weekly and monthly cycles, which are driven by more technical factors like trading patterns and market momentum.
It sounds like there's a whole lot to keep track of.
It can be overwhelming, for sure.
Yeah.
But the key is to start by understanding the foundational cycles, like the halving cycle and the 4-year market cycle. Once you have a grasp of those, you can start to delve deeper into the more nuanced cycles.
And I guess the important thing is not to get too caught up in trying to predict every single market movement.
Right. It's about recognizing the overall patterns, the ebb and flow of the market, and using that knowledge to make strategic decisions.
So it's like we were talking about earlier, that marathon analogy.
Uh-huh.
It's about pacing yourself, not sprinting at the first sign of a price increase.
Exactly. It's about having a plan, sticking to it, and riding those waves with discipline and patience.
And having the mental toughness to weather those inevitable storms.
Speaking of mental toughness, Jigs really emphasizes the importance of controlling emotions, especially when it comes to investing.
He talks a lot about using math and set rules to overcome those impulsive decisions, right?
Exactly. He believes that emotions are often our worst enemy when it comes to investing. We get caught up in the hype, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and we make decisions that aren't in our best interests.
So how do we overcome those emotional traps? What are some practical strategies for staying grounded and making rational decisions even when the market is going crazy?
Well, Jigs advocates for developing a set of investment rules based on solid math and historical data.
Okay.
He believes that by removing emotion from the equation, we can make decisions that are more aligned with our long-term goals.
So instead of reacting to every little price fluctuation,
Right.
we have a plan in place, a set of rules that guide our actions.
Right. And those rules should be based on sound principles, not just gut feelings or what you heard on Twitter.
Right.
Jigs emphasizes the importance of doing your own research, understanding the fundamentals of the market, and developing a strategy that aligns with your risk tolerance and investment goals.
So it's not about blindly following someone else's system or jumping on the latest trend.
Right.
It's about developing your own understanding and making informed decisions based on solid research and a clear strategy.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your financial future, and that starts with educating yourself and developing a disciplined approach to investing.
It sounds like Jigs has really thought this through, drawing from his experience both as an ultramarathon runner and as a seasoned investor.
He has, and his insights offer a fresh perspective on how we can navigate the world of finance and life in general, with more awareness, discipline, and resilience.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the theoretical side of cycles.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how did Jigs personally apply this knowledge to his own investing journey?
Well, he shares some fascinating stories about how he used his understanding of cycles to identify opportunities and avoid pitfalls in the crypto market. For example, he talks about how he used the halving cycle to time his investments accumulating Bitcoin in the lead up to the halving event, and then taking profits after the price had run up.
So he's basically using these cycles as a roadmap,
Right.
a way to anticipate market movements and position himself accordingly.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that it's not about trying to perfectly time the market, which is impossible,
Right.
but about recognizing the overall trends and using that knowledge to make informed decisions.
So it's about playing the long game, not trying to get rich quick.
Right. He talks about creating a blueprint for generational wealth, something he can pass down to his children and grandchildren. It's not just about making money, but about understanding these fundamental cycles and using that knowledge to create lasting financial security.
That's a powerful concept, thinking about wealth creation, not as a sprint, but as a multi-generational marathon.
Exactly. And it speaks to the importance of patience, discipline, and a long-term vision.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's bring this all back to our listener. What are the key takeaways here? What should they be thinking about as they explore Bitcoin and other investments?
Well, first and foremost, remember that cycles are everywhere. They influence markets, economies, technologies, even societies. Understanding these cycles is essential for making informed decisions, not just in investing, but in many aspects of life.
And don't underestimate the power of having a strategy. Jigs' 10-10-10 approach is a great example. It's about pacing yourself, making calculated decisions, and not getting swept up in emotional reactions.
It's about running that financial marathon with your head, your training, and your heart, just like he does in those ultra marathons.
And finally, remember that knowledge is power. Take the time to learn about the markets you're interested in, the technologies driving them, and the historical cycles that have shaped them.
The more you understand, the better equipped you'll be to navigate those inevitable ups and downs, make smart decisions, and ultimately achieve your financial goals.
So as you continue your deep dive into Bitcoin and the world of investing and keep those cycles in mind, they might just unlock a whole new level of understanding and success. And hey, who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to try a negative split marathon yourself. It really is fascinating how Jigs connects these larger cycles, right? to like personal individual growth.
Mm.
It's like he's saying you can ride these waves in your own life too,
Yeah.
not just in the markets.
And that's a powerful idea, right? It's not just about timing the market, it's about timing your life, knowing when to push, when to hold back, when to make a change.
So it's less about predicting the future with like 100% certainty and more about recognizing that there are seasons to everything.
Yeah.
And you can make better decisions if you're in tune with those seasons.
Exactly. And those decisions could be anything: changing careers, starting a family, even something as simple as knowing when to rest and recharge. Jigs talks about how crucial this is for ultramarathon runners.
Oh, yeah.
They can't just go full speed all the time. They have to listen to their bodies, respect the natural rhythms of exertion and recovery.
It's like he's saying that same principle applies to every area of life.
Yeah.
There are times to sprint, times to pace yourself, and times to just rest and let things unfold.
And sometimes that means having the courage to go against the crowd, to zig when everyone else is zagging. Remember that me cycle we talked about earlier? That's all about trusting your own instincts, your own internal compass.
Okay, but let's be realistic for a second. We're all human rights. We're going to get caught up in the hype sometimes. We're going to make emotional decisions, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah.
So how do we actually implement Jigs's advice?
Yep.
How do we become more disciplined, more strategic in our approach to investing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it starts with awareness. Recognizing our own biases, our tendencies to get swept up in the FOMO or to panic when the market dips.
So step one is to know thyself, basically. Figure out what your triggers are, what makes you make irrational decisions.
Right. And then it's about putting those safeguards in place. Jigs talks about having a set of rules, a plan that you stick to no matter what.
So if Bitcoin's price is skyrocketing and everyone's telling you to buy,
Right.
but your plan says to wait,
Right.
you wait.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if the market crashes and everyone's panicking, but your plan says to hold, you hold.
It sounds simple in theory,
Yeah.
but I imagine it's pretty tough to execute in practice, especially when there's so much noise and emotion swirling around.
It definitely takes discipline.
Yeah.
And that's where that mental toughness Jigs keeps talking about comes in.
Right.
It's about training your mind to stay focused on the long game, to not get derailed by short-term fluctuations.
So it's like we're back to that marathon analogy again.
Yeah.
It's not about sprinting to the finish line. It's about pacing yourself, conserving your energy, and having the mental fortitude to keep going even when it gets tough.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to run this marathon alone. There are resources, communities, mentors who can help you along the way. Jigs talks about the importance of finding your tribe, people who share your values and goals and who can support you on your journey.
It's like having a team of pacers helping you stay on track and keep moving forward, even when you hit those inevitable walls.
Right. And as you gain more experience, as you learn more about the markets and yourself, you become your own best pacer. You develop that inner compass that guides you through the ups and downs.
So the key takeaway here is that understanding cycles both in the markets and in our own lives can be a powerful tool for making better decisions, achieving our goals, and ultimately living a more fulfilling life.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks, there will be challenges, but the important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward.
Who knows? Maybe one day you'll even be running those ultramarathons alongside Jigs, both in the markets and in real life. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.